Chapter 561, Spider-Man is everywhere. He's huge and incredibly strong. Everyone, give him some room. 6116 Spider-Man shouted with theatrical confidence. The other Spider-Men stepped back, clearing an arc-shaped space around him. 6116 raised an arm and called out, "Come on out and show yourself. The Spider-Man of Universe 51778, Takuya Yamashiro." A galaxy-bright, web-shaped light spilled from the portal. First, a pair of enormous fists shot forward. Then, through the rippling air, the rest of a massive form unfolded, a giant robot. Inside the cockpit, a Spider-Man in the classic red and blue suit crossed his arms. "The messenger from hell, Spider-Man, has arrived." The robot landed with a tremor through the ground. Leon recognized it immediately. Toei's live-action Spider-Man, Spider-Man, piloting the Leopardon. He had the fearsome sword vigor, supposedly a certain hit, certain kill blade, and a reputation for overwhelming strength. Of all the spiders 616 could have summoned, this one was among the most powerful. "Let's mop up those damned inheritors." Spider-Man boomed from the robot, brimming with battle lust. In his world, he often toyed with monsters before finishing them off with a spectacle move. Facing multiversal heavyweights was an obvious thrill. Leon floated up, arms spread. "You're a bit late, Spider-Man. The Inheritor family is already finished." A beat of confusion crossed the giant spider's face. Then, a few minutes later in Universe Earth-01, the Inheritor's stronghold, a troop of Spider-Men accompanied the giant robot as it charged the Inheritor's castle. Leopardon swung sword vigor in a single devastating stroke. The castle and the Inheritors within were cleaved apart. Any remaining members were no threat to the robot. Leon watched as the last Inheritor fell. "Just as the prophecy said," he murmured, "the Inheritors wiped out by Spider-Man." He didn't linger to trade congratulations. Leon drifted away and slipped back into the void between worlds. He activated his supervision and scanned the surrounding universes, searching for the cause of the comic multiverse collisions. He quickly saw why the comic universes were colliding. There were no entanglement patterns, no shared structure in space or reality. Everything was being compressed. The effect matched what he had seen on his side, timeline contraction. But while Leon's world experienced contraction from a single-source timeline, the comic multiverse's timelines were being squeezed together from end to end. That difference mattered. An external force had done this. The pattern pointed at the Transcenders. Leon remembered accounts of the Ivory Kings, cosmic Transcenders who had shoved universes together like marbles, forcing collisions and destruction. Normally, cosmic entities powerful enough would intervene. Yet the Transcenders' actions had been so contrived, so deeply thought through, that the Life Tribunal and even the four abstract entities had cooperated on the surface, only to be swiftly eliminated. The incursions were not simple annihilation. They were a desperate measure to prevent something worse, an entity the Transcenders feared even more than the collateral damage of collapsing universes. Leon felt oddly reassured that this unknown horror probably wouldn't target the movie universe. If true, the Transcenders' incursions would most likely spare it. Still, he couldn't shake a lingering unease. Even a small chance of spillover was dangerous. "When I get back," he thought, "I need to prepare for whatever may come." Having finished the Inheritors, Leon returned to the movie universe and then headed to the TVA headquarters, outside of time. The moment he arrived, he was greeted by chaos. Hundreds of thousands of Spider-Men had turned the corridors and offices into a frenzy of activity. Red suits predominated, but there were every variety and style imaginable. Spiders dashed past hauling cardboard boxes, spray-painting desks, and painting murals of the World Tree on the walls. They were loudly helping rebuild the TVA. Their constant chatter and movement made the place sound like a clogged parking lot. Leon had to dodge through the crowd and felt a dozen urgent horns, figurative and very much loud, blasting around him as if he'd blocked an exit. He slapped a hand to his face and grinned at his own thoughtlessness. Spider-Men were formidable allies, but letting thousands loose inside the TVA had been premature. "Hey, Leon, you're back!" shouted one. "How did it go with the Inheritors? Did you come back for backup?" Another chimed in. "Do we get paid for this?" Someone else demanded. "The last Spider Alliance didn't pay me, and I still have to go take pictures for J. Jonah Jameson." They swarmed him immediately, a cacophony of voices. Leon raised his hands and tried to calm them. Quiet, everyone. The inheritors are dealt with. You don't need to worry about them anymore. Get back to your assignments. We can answer questions later. He worked his way through the mob and pushed into the TVA command room, where he found Black Strange and Jarvis in the thick of it. A ring of Spider-Men had surrounded them, peppering Strange with non-stop, frantic questions. Even reformed, Strange still carried the aura of the reserved, slightly aloof doctor. The swarm made his face sour. Jarvis, as an artificial intelligence, was unfazed. He patiently organized and answered the barrage of queries one by one. Some of the Spider-Men had even squeezed Gwen Daisy into a corner. Leon laughed out loud at the sight and gestured. All right, everyone, if you have questions, ask Jarvis later. For now, go on, get back to work. Once the door shut and the crowd thinned, Black Strange let out a visible sigh of relief. Your Eminence, he said to Leon with a rueful look, could you reconsider having the Spider-Men on staff here all the time? He managed a crooked smile. I can handle the multiverse, but I can't handle all those Peters. Chapter 1. The Disappearance of the Main Universe Earth. You have a point, but Spider-Man is really useful, isn't he? Leon said to Black Strange. Most Spider-Men were Peters. What kind of person was Peter? A top science student with exceptional physical gifts, a chosen worker. More importantly, Peters were hardworking and uncomplaining. They could put up with that miserly boss at the Daily Bugle and still get the job done. Now, serving as temporary hands for the TVA was practically perfect. Jarvis agreed. The Spider-Men are excellent. According to the work manual, they can get up to speed repairing temporal tech very quickly. He glanced at the command room door, which was tightly shut. His program was linked into the TVA's internal systems. Through monitoring, he could see more than a dozen Spider-Men crowded outside the door, eavesdropping. Dozens of heads were jammed into the narrow frame, faces almost flattened. Jarvis lowered his tone. Young Master, if you find the Spider-Men troublesome, I have a suggestion. Leon blinked. What's that? If you want the Spider-Men to be more restrained, why don't we bring in the Deadpool Corps? Jarvis's proposal stopped Black Strange in his tracks. Those Deadpools are noisy too, but if they run into Peter, they won't bother anyone else. And if the Spider-Men get entangled with Deadpool, they won't have the chance to be verbose. Leon's eyebrows rose. The idea was effective, if a little ruthless. He looked at Jarvis with mock reproach. You've changed, Jarvis. You've gone bad, you know that? Black Strange, having just learned about the Deadpool Corps, couldn't help but exclaim, Jarvis, you're a genius. Jarvis smiled faintly. It's a proverb Mr. Stark used to say, use one bandit to deal with another bandit. You've been corrupted by Tony, Leon joked, shifting the blame. But it's a good approach. In the East, we say, an evil person needs an evil person to grind them down. Leon brought up the timeline observation map on the command room's main console. At the source of the sacred timeline, several principal branches were tangled together. He murmured, I happen to be looking for Dr. Doom. I'll recruit the Deadpool Corps along the way. Black Strange's face twitched. Have you already located Doom's hiding place? I haven't searched for him yet, Leon said, but in our multiverse, there's only one place he could go. That place? Black Strange sounded helpless against Leon's riddles. But before going there, I need to go to our main universe to check the situation first. Leon didn't answer directly. He stepped away and left the TVA. As he departed, Jarvis remotely opened the command room door. The dejected Black Strange was immediately swarmed by Spider-Men again. Leon flew into the void, traveling past countless worlds. As he moved, he continuously released M-bodies of the Reed Duo clone. Preventing the multiverse's destruction outright looked increasingly unlikely. It might be better to go with the flow. Be ready to save people when worlds first collide, and use those collisions to accelerate the strengthening of the Reed Duo clone. Between a single dominant entity and the multiversal level, there was a yawning chasm, a terrifying transformation from the finite to the infinite. A major collision event could give the clone a chance to catch up with the main body. By the time Leon reached the main universe, he had dispersed hundreds of billions of those M-bodies along his route. His speed never slowed. Like a drop of water outracing light, he plunged into the main universe and descended straight to the Earth's location. He stood and looked. The cosmic vista was dark, and Leon fell silent. Earth was gone. A whole main universe Earth, missing. The other planets in the solar system continued their orbits, but in Earth's path there was no little blue sphere. The moon remained, but it had been shattered into countless pieces and was only barely held together by gravity. Leon examined the solar system from the shattered moon. After Earth's disappearance, the main universe itself had begun to decay. From his higher dimensional perspective, its conceptual and physical rules were unraveling. The entire universe felt like an old person losing vitality. This was the main universe, the source of the sacred timeline. Had Dr. Doom gone so far as to erase Earth outright? Leon had expected, at worst, that the main universe would start frequently colliding with other worlds. He had not expected it to vanish. He scanned the eternity dimension and could not find eternity. Other high-dimensional spaces revealed no signs of cosmic beings like death or infinity. Either those entities were hiding out and watching, or Dr. Doom had somehow killed them. Leon suspected the former was more likely. Infinite Ultron destroys universes everywhere, and they don't intervene. Dr. Doom wants to destroy the multiverse, and they still don't care. Did the abstract entities of this movie Multiverse really ignore these matters? Or did they regard this corner of existence as too small to bother with? Leon shook his head. Beyond the main universe, he saw multiple neighboring universes pressed closely against it. Those universes were already partially overlapping and beginning to collide. Now that the main Earth was gone, the collisions had actually slowed, though beings from adjacent universes, mutants, superheroes, still slipped through weak points into the main universe at times. The situation across these nearby branches was unstable. Full collision and destruction could occur at any moment. After surveying the scene, Leon did not try to force the universes apart. Instead, he merged back into space and left the main universe at once, returning to the void. He traveled outward along the main universe and its parallel neighbors, continuing to seed Reg Duo M bodies as he went. After traversing a great distance through space-time, Leon broke free of temporal constraints and arrived at the end of time, the Voidland. The Voidland was a special place in the MCU, situated at the end of time. It acted as the multiverse's garbage dump. Remnants of destroyed universes fell here, and the storm creature born from time and space rifts, Elios, devoured those remnants into oblivion. Leon's last visit had been during the fight with Infinite Ultron. That battle had affected hundreds of millions of universes and had stripped much of the Voidland down to black nothingness. This time, however, the Voidland had reconstituted. Vast tracts of land stretched to the horizon, carved by high mountains and low rivers formed from the wreckage of countless worlds. Leon had come here because he believed Dr. Doom would hide in the Voidland. In the whole movie, Multiverse, there was likely no more suitable place for Doom to build new forces and carry out his plans. Chapter 563, Goodbye, Doom. Leon replayed Dr. Doom's recorded statements from the Time Variance Authority's surveillance in his head. The world is sick. To save the world, we must tear it down and rebuild. The answer lies at the end of time, to bring true peace to the multiverse. It all pointed the same way. Doom was willing to destroy the universes to remake them. In the comics, that's exactly what happened. Doom absorbed the power of the Transcenders, forged Battleworld from the ruins, and imposed his new order. But in the movie universe, there were no Transcenders for him to take. If Doom wanted a Battleworld here, his simplest option was to annihilate every universe, then use the fragments to cobble a new world together. He'd stolen the Council of Kang's time technology. That alone could reconstruct a Battleworld, or even set up a new TVA. Doom's ambition clearly didn't stop at a single planet. He'd tried to seize Loki's power, and it seemed he'd succeeded. Sorting through the clues he'd gathered, Leon headed toward the continent's center. He turned on his super hearing and listened to the land. The sounds that reached him made his face go oddly still. He picked up voices coming from a small settlement. "Banner, move those crates over here. We have to make some food today." "Okay, Carl, come help." Following the voices, Leon found a village populated entirely by Hulks. The Banner of the main universe and a woman, his sister, were working together. How long had Earth in the main universe been gone? Why did Banner and the others look as if they'd been living here for years? The closer Leon flew to the continent's heart, the more settlements and tribes he found. He kept his super hearing on. From a tavern, he picked up a conspiratorial conversation. "Everyone, things are tense. After this meeting, we might not be able to meet again for a while," said Wong. "But we agreed to save Steve. When do we start?" America Chavez pressed. "Don't mention him," Wong snapped, annoyed. "Last time I tried to speak with him, he acted like he didn't even know me. Totally a lackey for that tyrant." "Doctor Strange would become Doom's subordinate? Impossible," Yelena said. "What's more impossible than waking up and finding ourselves in this damned place?" Ms. Marvel replied. "All right, no arguing. Let's assume we can't meet for now." Wong raised his glass. "A toast. We will find the truth and overthrow the tyrant." Find the truth. Overthrow the tyrant. Glasses clinked, faces were masked, and people slipped away into the night. It wasn't just that one tavern. Heroes gathered across the land, some plotting rebellion and a coup against Doom, others searching for answers, many of them not even sure how they'd ended up here. Most didn't know where they were. They called this land Battleworld. Leon felt a rush of emotion. He hadn't expected so many familiar faces from the main universe to be alive. In buildings and encampments, he spotted them everywhere. Star-Lord and the White Vision watching TV in an apartment, Wakandan Black Panther guards posted along a massive wall, the Winter Soldier confined behind bars in a water prison. Wait, Winter Soldier imprisoned again? Leon paused, scanning more carefully, then continued toward the center. In the comics, the seat of Doom's power, the kingdom at the core of Battleworld, is the Kingdom of Washington. Here in the movie universe, the zones weren't so neatly named. Most people didn't call Doom God King Doom. They called him a tyrant, a deceiver. Above a towering palace in the center, Leon's supervision pierced the upper chambers. Inside, a court assembly was in progress. Doom sat on his throne in his green cloak and metal mask. Beside him leaned Susan, the invisible woman, seemingly unnaturally close to him. Below the throne, the Doctor Strange of the main universe, wearing a robe that dragged on the floor, stood and reported on the state of Battleworld. Seeing that scene unsettled Leon. In the comic world, Doom had brainwashed Susan into being his consort. Reed Richards' children had become Doom's offspring. That melodrama was one thing in the comics. Was Doom repeating the same play here in the movie universe? Doom, the man who spoke of universal peace and yet who took other men's wives in secret. Leon listened to Strange's report for a few minutes. Battleworld, he learned, had existed only a few years. The internal situation was unstable, heroic uprisings, splinter groups. But as more remnants of worlds fused into it, Doom's creation would grow stronger and more permanent. The court report ended. Strange hesitated then, to everyone's surprise, asked, "Regarding the matter of searching for Loki again, Chapter 564, Invitation to Leon. About searching for Loki again, our forces have already captured most of the Lokis on Battleworld," Strange said, lowering his head. "I used magic to examine them, but the Loki we're looking for isn't among them." Dr. Doom remained unmoved on his throne. "Then continue the search for the others." "Strange, you know how important he is to us. Only by finding him can this world be returned to its original state and move toward a better future." Doom's voice rolled throughout the vast hall. For the moment, he was both monarch and god. He had become the god monarch. Strange nodded, one hand over his chest, bowing slightly. "Understood, Doom. I will continue to search for the remaining Lokis." "But those so-called superheroes have noticed our actions," Strange added. "They always claim that making trouble for us is upholding justice, so our next moves may not go smoothly." Doom snorted. "Superheroes, those self-righteous fools. They think they protect the world, but often it is their interference that plunges the world into chaos, a nest of nonsensical vermin." "Of course, I do not include you, Strange," he said more softly. "You once went astray, but now you have seen the truth and stand with me. You need not atone for your past. Go, keep searching for Loki. We need whatever power he has left." Doom's gaze swept the hall like something that could pierce walls and see a distant future. As he spoke, he seemed to already clutch that future in his hand. Strange bowed again and prepared to leave, his robe sweeping the floor. Then a voice cut through the hall from above. "Doom, I didn't expect you to quietly build a kingdom without even telling me." Everyone looked up. From the dome, Like a wraith passing through stone, Leon floated into the chamber. Both Strange and Doom's pupils shrank at once. Doom rose instinctively, his left hand slipping into his sleeve to press the time device strapped there. His reflex lasted a heartbeat before he relaxed. He was nervous because he knew how powerful Leon was, the kind of being who could, with casual ease, create a universe. Before he moved against the TVA, Doom's first step had been to sever all contact between the TVA and Leon's allies. Even mastering all the Council of Kang's time technology would not guarantee a safe retreat from Leon. But then Doom realized something as his fingers brushed the device. He now held the power of Shen Loki, true divine power. The balance had shifted. No matter how strong Leon was, he could not exceed someone who wielded Shen Loki's authority and could command time itself. Shen Loki's control over time surpassed even the Infinity Stones. The stones could create new timelines by changing the past, but Shen Loki's power actually altered the past itself, and the scope of that change reached the entire multiverse. After a moment of tension, Doom composed himself and allowed a calm face to return. He met Leon's gaze without flinching. "Long time no see, Leon. I didn't expect you to find the TVA's anomaly so quickly." "Quickly?" Leon's eyes were cold. "When I arrived at the TVA, I discovered you had already started your rebellion decades ago." He drifted down to the floor and faced Doom. "Doom, do you understand what you're doing?" For an instant, Doom's features beneath the mask, features remarkably like Tony Stark's, tightened. "If you worry about the TVA employees, be assured they are alive and have been returned to their respective worlds. If you worry about the multiverse," Doom's voice went rusty. "Leon, I invite you to join my plan." Leon's accusation turned into surprise. "Join you?" "Yes." Doom was blunt, almost earnest. "We both want to solve the multiverse crisis." Leon's expression hardened with suspicion. Surveillance footage from Jarvis had shown Doom's rebellion as an attempt to bring peace, but Leon still lacked details. "How are you solving the crisis? Isn't this crisis caused by you?" "You have a meticulous plan, Doom," Leon said evenly. "You gathered the Council of Kang's time technology, won people over, and rebelled against the TVA. Then you searched out Shen Loki and used time tech to seize his power. Finally, with that power, you tampered with timelines until universes collided and the entire multiverse began to unravel." With each sentence, the shock in Doom's eyes behind his steel mask intensified. He had not expected Leon to understand the scheme so precisely. "You know much more than I imagined." "As befits an abstract entity," Doom said, tone deep. He waved a hand. The others in the hall bowed and filed out without hesitation. "Yes, I know enough that I won't be deceived the way Strange and the others have been," Leon said. "You claim to want to protect the world and bring peace, but everything you've done is destroying the multiverse." Strange's stride faltered when Leon named the heroes, then continued as if nothing had happened. After the hall had emptied, Doom spoke again, low and heavy, as if carrying a mountain on his shoulders. "Yes, I am destroying the multiverse." There was no remorse in his eyes, "but I destroy it because it must be destroyed. This world is flawed, and the way the superheroes act is flawed. Those so-called heroes, Mr. Fantastic, Fire, Iron Man, they bring only disaster. Under their guardianship, the world will only worsen." Doom spread his arms in a gesture of terrible grandeur. "And only I, can bring true peace to the world." Chapter 13, Dr. Doom's Power of Time. "Leon, look at this world. Use your supervision and see my battle world." Dr. Doom gestured toward the view outside the hall, his voice brimming with excitement. "Here, Elios guards the city walls, and my subordinates protect humanity. No accidents, no crises will ever come. To borrow an old Earth tale, this is the Peach Blossom Spring. This is Avalon. Galactus cannot devour this place, and Thanos' snap cannot touch it. There are no multiversal disputes in Battleworld. There is only one God here, and that God is me, Doom. I will bring true peace." Doom sketched his grand design with shining eyes. He really believed he was enacting justice, destroying the multiverse out of noble purpose, the same kind of certainty that had driven Thanos in his own time. Leon felt the ambition radiating off him and could even understand the desire to forge a battleworld at the end of time. From the intelligence Leon had pulled from Golan, Doom's original universe appeared to have been destroyed by Galactus. That loss explained his obsession with creating a perfect, sealed world. Understanding didn't mean acceptance. What you say is compelling, Doom, but that doesn't make me accept the future you want for the multiverse, Leon replied. His shirt and trousers shifted, becoming a set of pitch-black battle armor. He had traveled between worlds before, relaxed even in dangerous places. When he killed Solace, it had been efficient, almost casual, because he trusted his superiority. Facing the current Doom demanded a different attitude, not from doubt, but from respect for the source of Doom's power, Shen Loki. Come on, Doom said. You can't persuade me. Try to use your power to change my mind. Leon floated, backed by the light from the hall's entrance, an impossible presence emerging from shadow. The rays seemed to bow and rotate around him. A shadow fell over Doom's eyes as he spoke deeply. You know I possess that power. You can't defeat me. Give up. Leon shook his head. It seems Shen Loki's power has made you confident. Let's see if you can get away from my hand first. With no warning, Leon struck. A thought, and a universe was born. From nothing he manifested an infinite cosmos, swallowing Doom whole. From outside it looked like a black sphere, 5 meters across. Inside it was endless space, ruled by the laws of the 6 gems. To escape meant battling the universe itself, struggling against unbounded energies and terrifying rules. Leon beckoned. The 5-meter orb shrank to a few centimeters and hovered in his palm. Escaping that universe would be equivalent to escaping his hand. Try to get out, Doom, Leon said. If you can't, stay there until I restore the multiverse to its original state. Inside the pocket universe, Doom stood on a planet and listened as Leon's voice thundered from the void. He reassessed the powers he now controlled. First was the time technology from the Council of Kangs, the tech that could erase timelines and thus wipe out most life, similar to the Time Crusher from Legends. It was effective against many, but struggled against odds like Infinite Ultron. Leon was stronger than Ultron, so Kang tech alone wouldn't guarantee victory. The other power was Shen Loki's time power. Applied to himself, it let Doom restart repeatedly or jump between moments until he found success. Applied to others, it produced attacks like time shearing, time overlap, and time chaos. Its rank was extraordinarily high. Perhaps no power in the multiverse outranked this time power. Doom had been stunned when he acquired it. At first, he'd wondered how he'd managed it at all, then chalked it up to Shen Loki's arrogance and carelessness. A god who'd ruled too long could forget to respect everything. With the power in his hands, Doom no longer felt intimidated by Leon. Compared to the priority of Shen Loki's gift, how strong could Leon be? He let his gaze wander over the universe's scenery and felt a measure of admiration for Leon's creation. Then Doom activated Shen Loki's ability. Brilliant green divine time energy poured out like a river and filled the pocket universe in an instant. Leon felt the rules around him shift. The scene in his sight skipped a frame. The black sphere in his palm vanished. Doom, who had been trapped, reappeared before him. You can't defeat me. Give up, Doom said, palm raised. Everything seemed to have snapped back to the moment before Leon had birthed that universe. But don't try to create a universe to imprison me again. You already tried. Even through the mask, the triumph in his tone was clear. Leon, your memory has been erased by the time reset, so I'm reminding you. Doom's voice was light, triumphant. Any further resistance is futile. I don't want to hurt you. Surrender and come join me. Leon looked at Doom, stunned into silence for a moment. So that had been a time rewind. He'd rewound time before, regional, limited, but never at this scale. Even Dormammu and Dimension Lords were hardly affected by those smaller reversions. Doom's reset had reached across the entire multiverse. That was a multiverse-level priority. The abilities Leon had just displayed had been rolled back too. His own memory had been wiped, except for one critical fact. His body now existed at multiverse level. He wasn't as vulnerable to the sacred timeline as he might once have been. The Golden Superman's trait of moving through time freely and ignoring paradoxes came to mind. Leon's command of time's rules wasn't yet superior in rank to Shen Loki's fragment that Doom wielded, but his physical form had transcended many laws. Indeed, Leon said, it's an extremely powerful ability. He glanced at Doom, then added, Now I'm going to punch you. Defend yourself as best you can, Doom. Chapter 566. The Dragon Slayer will eventually become a dragon. Leon's superbrain signaled that it was time to use his super strength. He floated in the air, fists clenched, eyes locked on Dr. Doom. Doom flinched. Leon hadn't moved yet, but the world through Doom's eyes went pitch black, as if he had already stepped onto a one-way road to death. He had never felt anything like it, not even when he faced the Destroyer. Doom forced himself calm and began to use the power of time, a skill he was not yet entirely fluent with. Time used on oneself was the strongest life-saving measure. Time used on an enemy could be the most terrifying offense. Distortions, disorders, erasure. The moment Leon prepared to strike, a dozen time attacks washed over him. He felt time around him twist and tear. What his left eye perceived was no longer the same as what his right eye perceived. Different parts of his body fell out of sync. He saw his own past and future layered over one another. His timeline was contorted and overlapping. Tearing sensations came from every direction, even from the depths of his soul, like countless invisible hands ripping apart every segment of time inside him. To an observer, Leon had become a blur, dozens of afterimages extending outward, each a different moment of him, representing past and future selves. Those overlapping versions would be shredded or annihilated by the collision of time. Doom stared at the smeared afterimages and, for the first time since the confrontation began, allowed himself a small sigh of relief. His cold mask kept his face still, but inside he felt significantly less threatened. He had watched Leon fight Infinite Ultron at the TVA, the speed that could cross hundreds of millions of light-years in an instant, the force to punch through a universe. That was ultimate physical power he could not match. But time, he thought, was a different realm. Heh, Doom muttered. Only those who can use rules are truly strong. Relying on brute force is just recklessness. He adopted a composed stance, hands clasped behind his back, and tried to recruit him one more time. Leon, you have lost. If you don't want to die like this, join me. Doom was not a kindly man. His creed resembled that of Emiya Kiritsugu, sacrifice a few to save many. Leon's power was dazzling, so dazzling that, despite being on opposite sides, Doom felt it would be a shame to let him die pointlessly. He intended to persuade him patiently. Strange and the TVA staff had all joined him for a greater good. Doom believed in his own charisma. Before Doom could finish, his eyes widened, his pupils tightened. His words died on his lips. The afterimages around Leon were collapsing. The grotesque distortions from time attacks snapped back into clarity. The shadow in the jet-black battlesuit returned to its proper form, and Leon's speed accelerated. This is impossible, Doom breathed. His time freeze had failed, but worse, all the time-based assaults were losing effect at once. A crisp cracking echoed through the hall, like a barrier being split apart by a hand. Doom stared as a single unstoppable image formed, Leon's fist, still frozen in the forward swing. One by one, the layers of time power fractured under that fist. Each crack was audible. The negative effects on Leon shattered in succession. Time overlap, distortion, erasure, all breaking. You're using your fists to shatter rules? Incredible. Doom felt as if he were dreaming. How could raw physical force break rule-based power? Seeing Leon's calm eyes dispelled the illusion. A cold realization washed over him. No, even if you are powerful beyond my comprehension, you cannot stop me. Doom gritted his teeth. He had, until moments before, believed he could not be bested. Now that belief evaporated, but an arrogant composure remained. He fixed Leon with a steady gaze. You have no way to stop me except to kill me. If you want to save the multiverse, try your best to kill me. With the last shattering sound, Leon destroyed the final layer of time power. His speed normalized and he was instantly before Doom. His fist struck. Doom collapsed. His green cloak and armored body were reduced to ash and subatomic particles beneath that blow. Leon stood on the steps and watched the ashes scatter. Then the disorienting familiarity of rewind hit. The scene snapped back. Doom reappeared, and Leon was standing where he had been before the swing. A faint silence passed. It seems I still win, Doom said. Kill me, and you can save the world. Unfortunately, you cannot kill me. He kept his hands behind his back, a trace of having confronted death in his eyes, but the air of a god king remained unbroken. Leon looked at him and said quietly, Time loop. Did you learn this from Strange? Doom's expression darkened. He had indeed placed a time loop in advance. When exactly, no one could say. Leon guessed Doom most likely bound the loop to himself immediately upon acquiring time's power, a safeguard against accidents. He had always found strange trapping Dormammu in time loops in different worlds interesting. He had not expected to one day suffer the same fate. Is this becoming a dragon after slaying the dragon? Our situations aren't the same as Strange and Dormammu, Doom said, his voice low and steady. Their time loop was limited to Strange and Earth. Mine is different. If I die, my loop will rewind the entire multiverse to the moment before my death. You can't defeat me, just as Dormammu couldn't defeat Strange, he continued, not unkindly. Come now, Leon, let us discuss terms. Chapter 5 and 67, Shattering Time. You want to bargain with me? Leon shook his head. Doom, I will not let my universe be sacrificed in a collision, nor will I let my Earth fall into the Voidland. There are irreconcilable contradictions between us, ideological differences, Doom said, and I will not become your subordinate. If someone like me joins Battleworld, who will be the divine monarch, me or you? Dr. Doom stared at Leon for a long moment, then finally sighed. He removed his metal mask, revealing a face identical to Tony's. He turned and sat on the throne, hands resting on the armrests, voice calm. Then come and kill me again. You want to protect your Earth, and I want to protect my multiverse, Leon said. You can try, Doom replied indifferently. This world will eventually submit to me. That is its destiny. Doom's expression was composed. He had prepared for death countless times and was ready to outlast Leon the way Strange had outlasted Dormammu. Leon's face was serious too. After a short pause, Leon suddenly pointed at the mask in Doom's hand. Wait, before we start, how about you put the mask back on? Facing your old, handsome face makes this a little awkward. Leon felt strange at the idea of striking a face identical to Tony's. Doom's rigid composure relaxed at once. His mouth twitched. Instead of replacing the mask, he threw it to the floor and spread his hands. Either kill me or leave. He still looked like a man confronting death with calm resolve, but there was a new, fragile solemnity. He had once been absolutely confident he could survive time loops. Now there was uncertainty. He knew Leon well enough, even after only a few meetings, to sense a similar stubbornness. Leon's jest had not been frivolity. It had been a composed farewell. That realization eroded Doom's confidence. Like a falcon, Doom watched Leon draw his fist back a dozen meters away and then instantly appear before him. A shadow of death crept into Doom's heart. He told himself this was another time loop. He would survive as he had before. But a few seconds later, he froze in alarm. Something was wrong. Leon's fist should have been impossible to react to. Doom's pupils narrowed as he noticed the entire world slowing in his perception. Leon, standing by the throne, was delivering his punch in slow motion. What's happening? Doom groped for movement, but his own body obeyed as slowly. He could barely flex his fingers. Then he realized with dawning horror, the power of time was automatically protecting him. The time power had triggered a defensive slow before he reached death. Doom had never seen that defense activate, for instance, not even the time he had been killed by Leon earlier. If it had triggered now, then, Leon used his fist to break the time loop. This time, he can truly kill me. Doom's face hardened with the implication, but then a new shock hit him. On the surface of Leon's incoming fist, intricate, spider-webbed cracks radiated outward, tearing through the air. The fractures had no visible end, running into places beyond Doom's sight. A continuous sound like shattering glass came from all directions, like an endless cascade of falling dominoes. Doom didn't need to think. The time loop that had enveloped the entire multiverse was being broken by a single fist, by brute, unimaginable force. Panic flared. If the time power's protection was designed to slow the world to let him slip through time and escape, he had to use it now. He surged to invoke the time power, intending to rewind himself to an earlier moment and vanish. But the pure green light of the time power, the world tree-like glow spreading across the multiverse, met Leon's fist and horribly became tangible. Under Leon's blow, the light didn't defend, it cracked. A crisp, final snap. The dazzling green light winked out. The power of time shattered. The sluggishness that had lulled Doom began to fall away. Leon's motion accelerated, blurring into speed. The attempt to reverse time had failed. The time power's automatic protection had been destroyed. Leon was not Dormammu, and Doom was not strange. No similar trick could hold him. Doom stared helplessly at the fist that now moved faster than his neurons could process. There was no time to plan. Darkness claimed him. "Do you think Doom's choice is correct, and you want to stand with him?" Leon said as he changed his fist into an open palm, knocking Doom unconscious with a single knife-hand strike. He spoke as if to himself. He had shattered Doom's time loop and annihilated the erupting time power. He had been ready to finish Doom, but at the very last moment he hesitated, because a familiar, unfamiliar voice had spoken behind him. "Please wait, Mr. Stark. You don't need to kill Doom." Leon knew that voice well. He restrained himself, then turned. "I don't want to kill Doom either, but countless worlds have already been destroyed because of him, and the multiverse is heading toward collapse. Are you telling me not to kill him because you're on his side, or because you have a better plan? You'd better have a good reason, Loki. Shen Loki, this is our first meeting. Don't give me a bad impression." Behind Leon stood Shen Loki, who should have been perched at the end of time. He wore green robes with a cape trailing behind him, the same color family as Doom's attire, consistent with the aesthetic of the Lokis. What set Shen Loki apart was his strangely compassionate air and the endless timelines he cradled in his hands. Even here, in the Voidland, Loki had not put down the strands of time that formed the world tree. Chapter 568, The Divided Sacred Timeline. Of course, there are very complicated reasons for all of this. Shen Loki lifted both hands, palms full of shimmering timelines, and gestured toward Leon. "Since my hands are full, let me finish explaining." "Go on," Leon said, crossing his arms and motioning for him to continue. "If your reasons are sound, I'll be an excellent listener." "Very good," Loki smiled, a thread of nostalgia in it. "It's a long story, but I'll keep it brief." He saw Leon raise an eyebrow and grinned. "Don't worry, I'm not talking about my own past. In this world, no one knows my story better than you, right?" Leon wasn't surprised by Loki admitting he'd transmigrated. "You know me well. Even Eternity and the others don't know everything I've lived. Were you one of those who watched me before?" Loki didn't deny it. "In fact, I know you better than they do. I watched your story unfold with my own eyes, watched you pinned to Tony Stark's chest while he danced." "You peeping Tom," Leon snapped, covering his face. "There's no need to bring up embarrassing babyhood moments." Loki shrugged. "If you'd sat on a golden throne for countless years, watching universe after universe be born and die, you'd be that relaxed too." "Relaxed?" Leon cocked an eyebrow. "If I mentioned someone getting smashed by the Hulk in Stark Tower and someone falling for his female variant from another world, would you still be so relaxed?" Loki choked on the retort. His eye twitched, and he glanced away before returning to the matter at hand. "That distant story, it happened before I wrapped time around myself." He grew serious. "In the history of the current multiverse, the origin of the TVA is closely tied to me. But before I ascended to the end of time," he continued, "the creator and controller of the TVA was Kang, the One Who Remains. As you know, there are countless Kangs across the multiverse, each armed with powerful temporal technology. They came from different worlds and all desired to rule the multiverse. In the distant past, they ignited the multiversal war. Kang, the One Who Remains, won. To prevent those ambitious Kang variants from arising again, Loki said, he pruned the timelines of the multiverse, leaving only a single sacred timeline." "That's the past as you know it, right?" he asked, pausing and glancing at Dr. Doom with complicated eyes. The endless green threads of timeline in his hands rippled like seaweed. Leon hesitated before replying, "Are you saying the past I know is wrong?" "No, it's not wrong. It's just incomplete." Loki sighed. "I only learned the rest after taking the seat at the end of time and watching the stories of countless worlds unfold. When Kang, the One Who Remains, pruned the timelines, he also divided the sacred timeline." "Divided?" Leon echoed. "Do you remember the mutant universe that invaded your world not long ago?" Loki asked. "Mutants, Ghost Rider, Blade, and Doom. Those universes are treated as separate now, but they were originally part of the sacred timeline. Kang didn't erase them, he split them off, forming the other principal timelines you now see on the world tree." Loki leaned in. "What Doom said is partially right. This world is a kind of anomaly. The mutant universe, the Fantastic Four's universe, and others should have been part of the main world. Doom isn't simply trying to destroy the multiverse and build Battleworld. He wants to merge those main timelines back into the sacred timeline to restore the world to its original state. That's why I gave him some of my power, Shen Loki admitted. Leon squinted. Hold on, there's more to this, isn't there? Loki's mouth quirked. Another reason was more personal. I grew tired of sitting on that golden throne and wanted to step down and find Sylvie. Leon activated his supervision. The Loki standing before him blurred and revealed itself as an illusory afterimage of time. You didn't even come here in your true form, just a temporal shadow. Following the strands of timelines back to their source, Leon found the real Shen Loki on a cliff in Battleworld. He and Sylvie leaned against each other, looking out over the sea. Loki's left hand rested on Sylvie's shoulder, a green timeline coiled in his other hand. Wind tossed their hair and clothes. The moment was both intimate and oddly sacred. When Shen Loki turned and met Leon's gaze, a faint awkwardness crossed his face. I'm just meeting an old friend before Doom finishes his plan, he said. Back in the Great Hall, the shadow of Loki tried to explain. Leon couldn't help teasing. If you went into the neighboring universe like this, Wizard Shazam would harshly judge your heart for impurity. Loki's shadow froze at the jab, then burst into laughter. People have called me evil and ambitious, but no one's ever called me impure. You saying that is a new one. He laughed a moment longer, and then shook his head. Enough. Back to the matter at hand. Leon stopped teasing and summarized with 2 fingers raised. So, you stopped me from killing Doom partly because you want him to reset the timeline, and partly because you wanted to step down and go on a date with Sylvie? Loki stared for a beat before saying, Actually, the first reason alone would have been enough. Only the first? Leon snorted. Then tell me this. Doom wants to merge several main timelines. He doesn't yet have enough power to complete it, so he's contracting the main timelines toward one another. That process is tearing the multiverse apart. If his goal is simply to reset the timeline, why didn't you give him all your power? Chapter 569, A Glimpse of the Future. Loki actually sighed when Leon asked. Doom's body isn't strong enough to bear the entire multiverse's timeline, he said. When I gave him a portion of my power, I was asking him to share some of that burden. Only then could I step away from the end of time and descend from that divine throne. He gestured toward the motionless figure on the throne. Leon looked. Doom's form was wrapped in a lattice of green timelines, lines of light that had no physical presence until Loki made them visible. Those timelines were the source of Doom's power, and Doom had become a vessel holding them together so they could continue to function. Leon tore his gaze away. Merging timelines requires a world reboot, Loki continued, but destroying the multiverse wasn't my original intent. My first plan was to keep the reboot local. Destroy the main universe and a handful of others, let Doom build his battleworld in the void, and then, when the superheroes fought him, help them reboot the sacred timeline. That sacred timeline would spread like a virus, reshaping other universes back toward what they were. That was the plan. Loki's face clouded. But a few years ago, after you crossed over, I glimpsed other multiverses near ours, particularly one far stronger than ours, the comic universe. There are transcenders there pushing to destroy that multiverse. If they turn their attention to us, we're done. He frowned. So I chose differently. Leon's expression shifted as understanding settled in. So because of the transcenders? Yes, Loki said. If outsiders are going to annihilate us, better that we set the terms of our destruction than let them dictate it. Leon thought of the overlapping cinematic and comic multiverses he had stepped into, the comic universe mid-reboot during the Secret Wars event. Fate had a way of reigning at the worst possible time. He had already prepared to escape with his little Earth if that time came. I understand, he said. I don't object. Loki allowed himself a small, wry smile. Then his tone grew serious. I didn't come just to stop you from killing Doom. Leon struck an exaggerated pose, as if demanding an apology for Loki's years of spying. Loki's smile stiffened. No, I came to give you a clue. You've already transcended the time of our world. I can't see your future clearly, but when you came back before, I glimpsed possibilities. Aside from total destruction and reboot, Our world might have another future. Leon leaned forward. If the world could avoid annihilation, it would be the best outcome. He felt a cautious hope. Loki's expression turned grave. I don't know what that future is. All I saw was one scene. After the multiverse had been destroyed, you were still there, surrounded by laughter and joy. It's not much to go on, but I tell you this in the hope you might bring us that future. Loki's earnestness belied the trickster's image. He had sacrificed much for the multiverse. Leon, for his part, accepted the hint. You sound like a gypsy fortune teller, he said with a smirk. Vague, but I'll work with it. Good. As expected of our world's Superman, we will meet again. Loki's image thinned into a temporal shadow. At the last moment, he remembered one more thing. One more point. Blaming Doom alone for the multiverse collision is extreme. Even without Doom, collisions would happen. A few years ago, the main universe's photon, Monica, accidentally entered the mutant universe, and without knowing it, pulled the two universes toward each other. Her crossing sparked the conflict between the main universe's Avengers and the X-Men, which indirectly led to the main universe's Earth being destroyed. Reed Richards' frequent multiversal explorations also sowed hidden dangers. Doom saw those events. He knew the multiverse would edge toward destruction even without him. That's why he decided to make Battleworld and reboot everything. He wouldn't tell you this himself, so I will. With that, Loki was gone. Leon sank into thought. When he had investigated the collisions earlier, Doom had already withdrawn the source of the timeline, so Leon hadn't noticed how many heroes, acting for what they thought was right, were unwittingly tearing the multiverse apart. Doom had not been merely reckless. He had believed extreme measures were necessary. Leon walked to the throne and touched Doom. A sliver of golden energy flowed into Doom's body, threading through his veins. He had not simply knocked Doom out earlier, he had sealed Doom's soul to stop him from waking prematurely. Now, the golden light slowly unsealed it. Doom's eyes opened. They tightened when he saw Leon. He instinctively reached to slip through time, to escape. Leon's hand on his shoulder pinned him, blocking the attempt. The battle is over, Leon said softly. You lost. He laid out his terms. You will run your battle world, and I will not interfere. Likewise, I will save the world my way, and you will not interfere. No contracts. You break your word, and I'll come find you. Then Leon turned and left Doom's palace. In the hall, Doom's emotions shifted like weather. After a long moment he rose, hauled himself down from the throne, and put his mask back on. Fully masked, he once again became Dr. Doom, the God King who had forged Battleworld. Chapter 570. Deadpool. Leon left the Voidland in a hurry. Before he went, he made sure to look up the long-missing Deadpool core that had ended up in the Voidland, now part of Battleworld. Along the way, he saw many familiar faces trying to make new lives. The X-Men, Magneto, and even a Holland spider possessed by Venom. Countless people torn from their worlds by destruction were eking out an existence in Doom's patchwork realm. When Leon finally found the Deadpool core, they were having a barbecue amid the ruins of a village. It was fitting. Absurd, crude, and impossible to kill, that mercenary circus had somehow survived everything. The land of nihility had been shattered by Leon and Infinite Ultron and then rebuilt by Dr. Doom. But the Deadpool core? Still loud, lecherous, and very much alive. They greeted Leon like old friends, slinging rude, suggestive banter and immediately asking if he'd seen Peter. Leon told them, vaguely, that there were a lot of Peters at the TVA. The Deadpools erupted with excitement and, for reasons only they understood, followed Leon back to the TVA. What happened next validated that excitement in the worst way. Ah! Save me! What are these guys? Don't bite my face. Ow, not my butt. I'm gonna die. I want to go home. The Peter Parkers from countless universes were stampeding down the TVA corridor in utter chaos. Some were swinging across the ceiling, some were glued to the walls, others lay on the floor, resigned. Behind them came a pack of Deadpools, gleeful and predatory as wolves spotting rabbits. Oh, whoa! Charge, boys. That Peter with the potbelly is mine. Skullhead Deadpool cackled, his head propeller wobbling. I want Peter to shoot me hard with his white, sticky web. Kid Deadpool squealed, brandishing twin swords. Peter-san, please stop so I can give you a strong hug. Daisuke Deyo. Ronin Deadpool called, oddly sweet. Peter, don't be shy. Come look at me. The female Deadpool was already clutching a defeated Peter as if to comfort him. The TVA command room, isolated by heavy alloy doors, felt comparatively calm. Black Strange and the AI Jarvis watched the monitors in grim silence. Gwen and several non-Peter Spider variants hovered behind them, drenched in cold sweat. "Jarvis, this is what you meant when you said bringing in Deadpool would calm the Spider-Men?" Black Strange asked, very deadpan. Several Peters looked at Jarvis as if he'd turned the planet upside down. Jarvis, serene as ever, answered in his mechanical voice, "Mr. Strange, I only said that with Deadpool present, the Spider-Men would no longer be harassing others." "And," Jarvis added, smiling with a robotic tilt as he nodded toward Gwen, Spider-Ham, and Dinosaur Spider-Man. The little spiders shivered. The massive Dinosaur Spider-Man squealed "Demon" and ducked behind Spider-Ham, shoving the smaller hero forward as if expecting the pig-sized friend to provide suitable cover. Jarvis spread his hands. "See?" Black Strange was speechless. Jarvis's logic was annoyingly precise. Then the corridor erupted again. A portal opened, and the Peters scrambled toward it like sailors reaching a lifeboat. "Someone opened a portal. Get through," someone shouted. The rush accelerated into panic, but Skullhead Deadpool rolled at the feet of a middle-aged, pot-bellied Peter and tripped him. He went down hard. "You can't leave, my adorable Potbelly. You're mine," Skullhead crowed. "No," Potbelly Peter wailed. "One of you. Go back. I'll save him," another Peter shouted, spinning on his heel. "No, don't mind me. I'm done for. Tell Mary Jane. Tell her I always loved her." The fallen Peter sighed. A nearby Peter refused to abandon his friend and hurled a web, aiming to pull him up. The Deadpools had other plans. They surged forward with Kid Deadpool's battle cry. "Charge! Whoever gets him first wins." They leapt and piled onto the two Peters with ridiculous sexualized enthusiasm. "Ah, it's Peter's scent! Look at his perky butt and that little potbelly." The sight was enough to turn stomachs. It wasn't that the Peters couldn't fight, the Spider-Men were more than capable, but the Deadpools were so sickeningly perverse that being touched by them felt like a fate worse than a beating. "Run! Don't let their sacrifice be in vain," a high school Peter cried hoarsely. "We'll avenge you. We'll tell your families. Your sacrifice is glorious." They ran past the orange square portal, desperate for escape. Then a man strolled out of that portal and casually shut it behind him. He carried a ridiculous little dog under one arm and struck a pose like he'd stepped onto a stage, elbow against the wall, chin propped, the other hand on his hip. He wasn't masked. His head was pitted and scarred, full of holes like an avocado, and his eyes were tight slits. He waggled a finger, scratched his butt, and adopted a flirtatious sway. "Oh, my dear B-15, you're so unfriendly. You ostracized me," he said to the dog in a mock-offended whisper. "All I did was pat Jarvis's incredibly bouncy little butt, and you cut my time pad signal? Jealous much?" This was the original Deadpool, the one who'd arrived with Wolverine. He had assumed the time pad had failed because everyone at the TVA was collectively shunning him. Now he was back and determined to act like the world owed him an audience. "Now, you suddenly reconnect me because there's an emergency that only your dear Deadpool can fix," he continued, planting a hip out. He pushed off the wall, bobbing his head like a game show host. No. Your friendly neighborhood Deadpool will not forgive this unfriendly TVA. If I am to act, Jarvis, College Peter, Adult Peter, and Middle-aged Peter all must say, 'Deadpool is the best.'" He wagged his finger in slow, theatrical demands, swaying his hips and delivering the line with maximum irresistible charm. Across from him, the Peters who had slammed to a stop stared like they'd seen a ghost. They mouthed to one another, "Deadpool, Deadpool." Then, as if in silent consensus, they pointed and gestured to the walls and ceiling, urging the others to scuttle past him without coming near. "Go, around him, on the walls, now!" They didn't need to say it. The Peters obeyed, avoiding him like a hazard. The chaos in the corridor continued, but one thing was clear. In the TVA, new Deadpool had just become everyone's greatest nightmare, and maybe, in his own twisted way, its wild card. Chapter 571, Dark Strange Kills Through Hell. The Peters didn't dare disturb Deadpool, who sat with his eyes shut, lost in his fantasies. They climbed the wall in silence and haste. After a long while with no response, and with the unmistakable lewd noises of other Deadpools coming from nearby, the main Deadpool finally sensed something off and slowly opened his eyes. "Wait, What's that sound? Shit, B-15. You didn't actually find other Deadpools, did you? When he blinked open his eyes, what met him was not B-15 or any other Deadpool. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, every surface was covered with Peter Parkers. Deadpool's eyes widened. He looked up, he looked down. He was surrounded by the bright, familiar colors of Spider-Man's suits. The Peters were frozen in place, unsure whether to move forward or retreat. Deadpool's hand went slack, and whatever he'd been holding fell to the ground. The Joker dog at his side stared at the Peters, tongue lolling. Oh my God! He cupped his face theatrically with both hands. Where have I come to? Is this heaven? Damn it! Which good screenwriter sent me to heaven? He let out a shriek. Peters, my Peters! Oh my goodness, come into my arms. I'm gonna vigorously knead your spider eggs. He flung his limbs wide and launched himself at the nearest Peter. The closest one screamed and scrambled away, clinging to the wall with hands and feet. The rest scattered like startled birds. Deadpool lunged at empty space, and then laughed with delight. There were so many Peters, he felt like he'd walked into a Peter harem. Don't run, Peter. My Peter, he howled, twisting his waist and hips as he chased them. In the command center, everyone who had walked, thank you, Your Excellency. In the early days of the TVA's renewed operation, Leon stayed to help the sorcerers and little spiders learn the ropes. Once the timeline detection equipment was back online, any timeline where world collisions had occurred or were occurring could be found easily. Leon spent that time pushing away universes on the brink of collision, strengthening himself through each act of justice. Soon, one of those collision events involved Dark Strange's universe. Leon's M-body succeeded in pushing the two colliding Earths apart, but Black Strange's mood remained heavy. He knew it was only a temporary reprieve. In the grand scheme of the multiverse's demise, his world was still fated to be destroyed. So Black Strange asked Leon for leave, to go to hell, calm himself, and, if possible, help Mephisto conquer the remaining hells. Leon agreed. 3 days later, Black Strange sent a message via the time tablet. Satanish's hell had been breached. Leon went into hell and enslaved Satanish, just as he had Mephisto. 2 days after that, Black Strange had cut through Lucifer's hell. The next day, Sartanos' hell was emptied, no demons left. Within half a month, the Hell Lords who had once attacked Leon's God Realm dimension were systematically conquered, led by Black Strange with Kamartaj sorcerers at his back. This blackened Strange unleashed slaughter with no hesitation. Hellhounds, succubi, legions of demons, none could stand under his magic for a second. When the Hell Lords counterattacked, he answered in traditional Kamartaj style. He called upon his own power to manifest the Vishanti's sacred sword, lifting the great blade to meet them. In 2 weeks, Leon had the Hell Lords under control. Those hells were being redirected toward the God Realm dimension, queuing to be devoured. Black Strange vented all his bitterness as he raised each hell. When he finally returned to the TVA, he found Leon and said, Your Excellency, I want you to devour my world. Chapter 572, Letting the God Realm Dimension Devour the Universe. Devour your world? What are you talking about? Leon was stunned. Most of his consciousness was projected across hundreds of millions of M-bodies, stabilizing worlds throughout the multiverse. Black Strange, who had suddenly approached him and uttered such an unthinkable proposal, had frozen Leon's main body mind in its tracks. The usually grave faces of the various Stranges were nothing compared to the bitterness and resentment etched on Black Strange's features now. He drew a long, steadying breath and forced the words out with resolute difficulty. I want you to use your God Realm dimension to devour my Earth. Black Strange looked utterly solemn. Leon stared at him for a few seconds and replied, You faced plenty of dimensional demon gods. You even absorbed Shuma's power yourself. You must know that once a world is dragged into another dimension, dimensional energy will assimilate it, Leon went on. Creatures inside will either mutate into dimensional beings or die in painful, catastrophic transformation. Why would you ask that of me? That's your homeland, the world you resurrected after so much suffering. Even if it's doomed in the end, at least it would have a final stretch of normal existence. We could put your Earth into a pocket space, like a world ring, during the universe collision, instead of having a dimension swallow it. Leon explained what would happen if an extra dimension consumed Earth. He thought Black Strange must have lost his mind in hell, seeking a quick, merciful end for his doomed planet. But Black Strange looked remarkably calm. Dark hollows framed his eyes as if he'd pulled countless all-nighters, yet within those circles his eyes burned with unusual clarity. He knew what he was doing. He might have found a real solution. "I know putting Earth in a pocket space is an option," Black Strange said, "but letting your dimension devour Earth could bring a sliver of hope to the entire multiverse." Color crept back into Black Strange's pale, troubled face as he grew more animated. Other extra dimensions each follow their own rules, rules with corrosive forces that pollute and assimilate anything they swallow. But your dimension, your excellency, is different. I spent time in hell and always felt something was off. Today I finally figured it out. Your God Realm dimension has rules and an environment almost identical to those of ordinary universes. I don't know why. Before I returned, I went into your God Realm dimension once more. You might not have noticed, but even the strange creatures inside it are beginning to resemble those from the real universe. Black Strange was referring to the entities Leon had found in the God Realm dimension, things like Scythe Blade and Rhinoceros Horn Water. After Leon had taken control of the God Realm, he hadn't paid much attention to them. At Black Strange's words, Leon activated his Rege Duo clone, pushing his Ultra Force into the God Realm to inspect. Sure enough, the knife and horn-shaped creatures, covered in corrosive energy, had lost most of their corrosive traits. Their physiology was shifting toward that of ordinary universe life. Leon considered, "When I took control of the God Realm dimension, I modified it. I implemented the 6-gem rules of a normal universe inside the dimension. Those rules started the dimension's transformation into a universe, and they changed the living conditions within it. So that was the crux of Black Strange's request. You think my God Realm dimension won't erode Earth, but instead could provide an environment where Earth could keep functioning." Black Strange nodded, excitement brightening his gaze. "Exactly. Do you think it's possible?" He spoke fast, breathless with the hope he'd been clutching. "If Earth can continue to operate normally inside your dimension, then everything could change. You know, I've studied how universes collapse. I've thought a lot about this." Black Strange did not hesitate to reveal the darker parts of his past. As the axis of the universe, every universe hinges on its Earth. Even the world collision crisis begins with Earth's collision. Push the Earth away, and the crisis ends. If you devour Earth with the God Realm dimension, will the universe still collide with other worlds because of timeline contraction? Maybe, but there's another possibility. He paused, then pushed on. The universe could follow Earth and rush into your God Realm dimension. If those universes are then subsumed by the God Realm dimension, then the multiverse might survive, only relocated, existing inside a different place. Black Strange grew more excited as he finished. At that moment, the two of them stood in the TVA command room. Spider-Men and sorcerers around them had been listening to Black Strange's improbable claim. But his final conclusion left them stunned. The Spider-Men and sorcerers rose to their feet in astonishment. One sorcerer couldn't help asking, "The Sorcerer Supreme's God Realm dimension sits in the realm of Split, full of demon gods. There's the outer dimension separating it from ordinary universes. Within the outer dimension dwell even deadlier demon gods like Setarok and Shuma. How could ordinary universes run into the God Realm dimension to be devoured? This is wishful thinking." "Wait, before you go on, can you explain what those dimensions really are?" one Peter blurted. "I don't even know what they look like. Aren't all those dimensions attached to their own universes, part of the multiverse? If the multiverse is destroyed, wouldn't the God Realm dimension be destroyed too?" Once one Peter spoke, the others, who had been holding back, chimed in. The command room, which had been the low two-person conversation between Leon and Black Strange with only the soft typing of a few aides, erupted into a chorus of pointed questions. They were all valid. "Stop! Stop!" Black Strange barked, his face darkening, but his shout had no effect. The debate only intensified, until Jarvis projected a holographic Deadpool into the room. The instant the hologram appeared, the Spider-Men fell silent. Their legs, which had wanted to bolt for the door, obeyed Jarvis and their seats instead. Black Strange took the moment Jarvis gave him, He drew a hidden thumb from under his robe and acknowledged Jarvis, then picked out the two most important questions to answer. I've stopped Dormammu from invading Earth. I once crossed dimensions to reach Cagliostro's library world and studied magic for hundreds of years. I've devoured countless dimensional creatures and seized Shuma's power. I understand dimensions better than you, he said, laying out the highlights of his resume with cold pride. Then, with conviction, he added, there are countless dimensions attached to universes. Yes, but a universe can also, in turn, merge into a dimension. Chapter 573, The Excellent Emissary, Black Strange, Outer Dimensions, Realm of Split, Distant Lands. Black Strange paced slowly, hands clasped behind his back. These boundless dimensional layers encompass all the universes. The God Realm dimension sits inside the Realm of Split, and there are also outer dimensions stretching between it and Earth. But in truth, every dimensional layer can open a direct passage to Earth. He turned to the assembled group. Take Dormammu as an example. You've never directly faced his invasion of Earth, so you don't realize. When Dormammu swallowed Earth, he opened a direct rift between the dark dimension and our planet. Consuming an entire universe works on the same principle. He waved his hand and wove a living projection in the air, painting the cosmos in motion. We only need to have the God Realm dimension devour Earth while we open a passage from outside the universe into the Realm of Split. Black Strange snapped his fingers. The universe will follow Earth's gravitational pull through that passage, move to the outside of the God Realm dimension, and be there to be devoured. Then we repeat the process, over and over, until we've saved the entire multiverse. He smiled with quiet confidence and prepared to answer questions. Gwen Spider-Man raised her hand. If you have to open a passage for the universe to follow, why not just devour the universe directly? Why take the extra step of devouring Earth first? Because devouring a universe directly requires vastly more power, Black Strange replied without hesitation, and it takes too long. The multiverse can't wait. By drawing universes in one by one through Earth, we gather them around the God Realm dimension first, preventing collisions and chaotic destruction as they converge. He altered the projection into an even more detailed scene, a cramped cluster of universes, each a dark bubble packed against the others. 4 limitless dimensional shells encased the cluster. The Realm of Split formed the second layer, with the God Realm dimension nested inside it. On the image, a rift opened just outside the God Realm dimension and linked to the cluster. Earth after Earth was shown being pulled into the God Realm, and each universe bubble slid along the same corridor toward the God Realm's edge. As the process continued, the cluster contracted. One by one, the external bubbles approached the God Realm. That's how it will work, Black Strange said, gesturing at the illusion. He pointed at Gwen. You may sit down. With every answer he gave, his voice grew firmer. What had once been a tentative theory had hardened into a confident plan under scrutiny. When the spider people and mages raised further objections, he answered them too, and each clarification made him more convinced of the plan's feasibility. There was one more worry. If the Realm of Split itself were destroyed when the multiverse collapsed, then everything would be lost. Black Strange turned his luminous gaze to Leon. That depends on you, Majesty. You said the God Realm dimension is already transforming into a true universe. If you can complete that transformation before the multiverse is utterly destroyed, then that new universe can break free from the Realm of Split, detach from the cluster, and exist independently in the void. He spread his hands expansively. Think of it as a great ship sailing out of a storm. We pilot that independent universe away from the regions the Transcenders inhabit. Once separated, even Transcenders won't be a problem. Black Strange's excitement was palpable. His gaunt face flushed. For a moment he half reached for Leon and then restrained himself. Since his first desperate plea, when he'd flung himself at Leon's feet begging him to save his world, Black Strange had shown the utmost reverence for Leon, treating him like a god and never initiating contact. Now, with the plan taking shape, he channeled his eagerness into another projection. On the screen, the remaining universe bubbles that had been lingering just outside the God Realm were swallowed one after another. When the last bubble vanished, the God Realm dimension itself unfurled. What had been a confined pocket of existence blossomed into a boundless, true universe. Black Strange spread his arms toward the image. Look, this is the surest way to save the multiverse. The multiverse isn't destroyed, it's being reshaped to survive. Little Spider and the mages stared, rapt. Even the spider people fell silent. Perhaps they were wary of Jarvis, whose hand rested on the projection console, fingers ready. Ever since the Deadpool incident, no one wanted a sudden deterrent sprung. The command room held its breath for a beat, then one of the mages began to clap. The sound spread, a tide of approval washing away the tension. Leon found himself applauding too, surprised at how impressed he was. Black Strange's proposal resembled Doom's battleworld in outcome, Leon thought, but the similarity ended there. Instead of forging a battleworld from scratch, Black Strange exploited the multiverse's current state to achieve a comparable result by a completely different method. It was the kind of cunning and creativity Leon had come to expect from Strange after his darker turn. Dark Strange, season after season in Leon's memory, the radical protagonist in Season 1 of that what-if life, the main antagonist in Season 2, the wild card in Season 3, could always produce the unexpected. When he sought to destroy a world, he was terrifying and inscrutable. When he sought to save one, he became an ingenious ally. That range, this multiverse-level ability, made Black Strange indispensable. Leon thought of the emissaries who had represented other cosmic forces, the devourer of worlds, eternity, and felt certain they'd pale next to this. He promised himself that when the abstract entities next convened, he would bring Black Strange and properly introduce this extraordinary emissary to eternity and the others. As the applause died down and a few of the more excitable spider people whistled, Black Strange turned to Leon, a thin thread of nervousness in his voice. "Majesty, what do you think of my method? Is it feasible?" Leon met the emissary's eager eyes and kept his response to himself for a moment, weighing the fate of the multiverse in the silence of the command room. Chapter 574, Experimental Earth. "I must commend you, Stephen. You truly understand dimensions deeply," Leon began, praise in his voice. Even among countless stranges, Black Strange was one of the most knowledgeable. "As for your method," Leon drew the words out a little. Black Strange's heart skipped. Then Leon continued, "Your method is excellent and highly feasible." Black Strange exhaled a long, trembling sigh and let his shoulders slump. He smiled, about to urge Leon to begin at once. Instead, Leon said, "However, there's a problem. To devour a universe, we must face more than the covetous dimensional demon gods. We'll also face resistance from the beings inside the universe, the four great abstract entities that protect it, and the interference of Galactus." The sentence struck Black Strange like a speeding train. His expression went serious. He had only thought about the threat from demon gods. After all, since he had entered Kamartaj and become a disciple of the Ancient One, the enemies he'd confronted had been dimensional demon gods. He'd been too narrow in his thinking. When a universe is consumed, cosmic deities, eternity, death, could not simply stand by and do nothing. The lightness that had returned to his face died away. Hope, newly kindled, was snuffed before it could warm him. Then Leon changed tone. "But those aren't insurmountable problems." He hooked a hand into Black Strange's shoulder, deliberately prolonging the pause. "As for resistance from beings inside the universe, we can give them choices. Die in the collision or relocate elsewhere. Everyone knows how to choose. And the abstract entities, don't worry. They're well acquainted with me. I know them very well. Those beings have already given up, content to watch their dimensions like a daily spectacle. They'd welcome a change." Leon patted his proud subordinate on the shoulder. The dimness in Black Strange's eyes brightened a few shades. He was still dazed, his breathing irregular from the emotional whiplash. Little Spider and the other mages nearby watched, equally stunned. "Your Majesty, are you saying my plan has no problems?" Black Strange asked, stunned. Leon smiled but added, "Well, there's one more issue." He let the words hang. Black Strange stiffened. "The first Earth we devour cannot be yours. Even if the God Realm dimension's environment resembles an ordinary universe, it is still an extra dimension. We should try others first." In the cosmic void beyond the solar system, Leon stepped out from the distant TVA and appeared, hovering above an Earth. This was the mutant Earth, the one that had invaded the S-universe during the last world collision. In that battle, nearly all the mutant leadership had been lost. Apocalypse, Magneto, Professor X, Wolverine, all had fallen to the Avengers. After Jean Grey's death, the fragments of the Phoenix Force she carried even fell into Leon's hands. Weeks had passed since that conflict, but the shadow of defeat still hung over the planet. Defeat alone was not new to this Earth. Having endured 5 world collisions, mutant Earth had been crushed before. The Thanos who wielded 4 Infinity Gems had once brought them low. They had always found ways to claw their survival back. This time felt different. Their principal fighters, their greatest bulwarks, had been annihilated. With only a handful of weak survivors left, what other Earth could they hope to topple? In the command room of the Earth United base, William Stryker stood at the head of the table. If another world collision happens and we face the early-stage Avengers, maybe with Sentinel robots, we could still destroy another Earth, he said. But if we face Thanos or some other stronger force, we're finished. So we must create stronger mutants, stronger than Apocalypse, stronger than Jean Grey. After multiple world collisions, Stryker had risen from colonel to general. External threats had slowed his domestic campaigns. He turned instead to scrubbing the mutant gene, to creating far more powerful mutants, not merely more Sentinels. He looked down the table at Mystique, seated in the front row. If the mutant side agrees to let Mystique undergo my experiments, he said, I am confident I can produce the strongest mutant imaginable. The air in the command room thickened like glue. Mystique was there in her true form, blue-skinned and scaled, amber eyes cloudy with anger. A few Delta-level mutants sat beside her, their power negligible. With Professor X and Magneto gone, they could only glare at Stryker's plan to make one of their own a test subject. Mystique and Stryker stared each other down. The smile on Stryker's face grew cold and his gaze harder. Humans and mutants alike rose, the meeting about to explode into violence. Mystique sneered, then let out a self-mocking laugh. Fine, I'll join your experiment. To survive, we've already slain tens of billions of humans. Are we afraid now to be used as lab specimens? But Stryker, her smile twisted, do you enjoy the fact Apocalypse and Magneto are dead? Do you relish having mutants at your mercy? If I enter your lab and you still cannot stop the next world collision, she said, slamming the table and standing, I will be the first to send you to death. I will tear every bone from your body and honor the mutants. With that, she led the others out of the room. The sudden outburst made everyone's heart jump. Stryker only smiled, unaffected. Which of those gathered was not stained with blood? Whose hands were not covered with the lives of those billions of humans? For survival, what were a few threats? With Mystique in his control, Stryker believed victory was certain. One after another, he would use her to destroy colliding worlds and make their Earth the final survivor. Meeting adjourned, he said. Mystique reports to my experiment base by tomorrow. He gathered the papers, anticipation bright in his eyes. Then, as the room buzzed with uneasy murmurs, a majestic voice echoed inside every mind like the tolling of an ancient bell. This completely fallen Earth is perfectly suitable to be the first experimental subject to be devoured. Chapter 575, Startling Changes During Assimilation. Mutant Earth was, without question, the right choice for the first experiment. This world had endured 5 world collisions, annihilating 4 other Earths with its own hand. They had not only committed genocide, their moral bottom had fallen into an abyss. Even someone like Wolverine had been driven to the brink of a personality collapse by the constant trampling of moral limits. The other humans and mutants had long since become monsters. If such a place were calmly admitted into the God Realm dimension, Legidua would have to worry those demons would flood out and run amok. It was far safer to use this Earth to scout the process for rescuing more typical worlds. So Legidua picked up Mutant Earth himself. Because he acted personally, he didn't need the elaborate spatial channel procedure Blackstrange had described. Legidua restored himself to his true stature, 90 million kilometers tall, picked the blue planet like a speck between 2 fingers, and strode through the void back to the threshold of the God Realm dimension. The Earth on his palm looked no larger than dust, more like cradling it than gripping it. Outside the God Realm dimension, Legiduo linked to its internal rules and began easing the planet in. Picking the Earth up was easy. Bringing it into the God Realm dimension required focus. This was his first time assimilating an Earth. Although the God Realm dimension's laws and environment resembled a normal universe, there was still a risk of corrosive influence. He had to watch carefully for changes as the planet entered in order to make adjustments. He pushed half his body into the God Realm dimension and left the other half outside. The dimension's membrane sliced him into two halves. Then, controlling the dimensional barrier, he advanced the planet slowly, 1 kilometer at a time, so the Earth entered the God Realm dimension in a controlled crawl. Legiduo deliberately oriented the planet so that Nuxiang Prefecture, the place where Stryker and the others were in the middle of a meeting, crossed the threshold first. As the entire prefecture slipped into the God Realm dimension, an invisible force descended, the 6 gem rules. Inside the Earth Joint Base, Stryker, Mystique, and the others were still reeling from the strange voice that had flashed in their minds a few seconds earlier. The instant the 6 gem rules landed, their fear turned to screams. Pain surged through them as if something inside was being torn apart. Ah! What's happening? A mutant attacked the base. Call for help! Hurry, call for help! Stryker toppled in the command room, clutching himself and rocking, a hysterical wail escaping his lips. Outside, Mystique and other mutants crumpled to the floor. It hurts, so painful, like my body is being ripped apart. Xiaotaki, who had been at the meeting, convulsed on the ground. Mystique knelt beside her, teeth bared. As an older generation mutant warrior, Mystique's will was harder to break. She tried to use her power. Her blue skin trembled as she attempted to alter her appearance and rewrite her genes. Each transformation began and then failed instantly. Her face veins bulged from the strain as she gritted out through clenched teeth. So, someone attacked us. My cells are collapsing. They're trying to pour out of me. Their genes are mutating, out of control. Mystique never finished. She suddenly spat a mouthful of blood and tissue, the vomit containing clumps of organs. The blood and organs slumped onto the floor and continued to writhe. Then, after a few shudders, the quivering masses detonated, bursting into a bloody mist that scattered in the room. "Mystique!" Xiaotaki screamed, her pained cries cutting off as she lunged to help. But the moment she tried to move, her stomach convulsed. Before she could retch, her chest expanded with a sickening pop and exploded. A shriek was ripped free as a spray of gore drenched Mystique's upper body. Xiaotaki collapsed, breath gone, her body still convulsing. Flesh on calves, arms, cheeks, tissues and cells seemed to take on wills of their own, squeezing, crawling outward. Little beads of blood and meat popped up across her skin and detonated as soon as they landed. In the fog of gore, only her skeleton remained, and then, grotesquely, the skeleton twitched. Its femurs retracted as if to stand. The movement was brief. The skeleton, too, then exploded. Xiaotaki's disintegration was frighteningly swift, as if possessed by some trickster god. And she was not alone. That collapse swept through every living thing in Nuxiang Prefecture. Mutants, humans, animals, whatever life remained on that sin-burdened land. Legiduo watched the devastation unfold and understood. This was the native rule inside the God Realm dimension at work. It spawns native dimensional creatures, he murmured. Their presence is usually minor, but they're automatically assimilating weaker life forms. Dimensional rules passively assimilating ordinary life tend to be catastrophic. Passive assimilation like this nearly always meant collapse and death. Active assimilation, like Dormammu transforming Caecilius, left the assimilated alive but subsumed into the other being. Those outcomes were unacceptable for future mergers of other Earths. Legiduo could not allow this part of the rule to remain operative. He didn't immediately sever the rule entirely. Instead, with a thought, he contracted the native rules to a very small pocket and herded the dimensional creatures into that confined area. The abrupt action drew the attention of Galen, who had been living contentedly in the God Realm dimension for years. She often played with the scythe knife and the rhinoceros horn water, and when hungry, she begged Legiduo's Rege Duo clone for food. Hearing the commotion, Galen flew over from a distance, her small body drawing close to Legiduo's colossal eye. "What are you doing, Legiduo?" "Huh, what's that? An Earth?" she asked. Yes, Legiduo said. This multiverse is collapsing. I'm trying to salvage a few worlds. After a brief explanation, he resumed sending the rest of the planet into the God Realm dimension. Galen watched eagerly, helping him observe the effects. As the native rules receded into their pocket, subsequent regions of the Earth entered the God Realm dimension without undergoing the horrifying assimilation. But when 2/3 of the planet had been brought in, something unexpected happened among the first group that had already crossed over. Their bodies began to glow, faint at first, then stronger, a radiance made up of 6 colors: red, orange, yellow, green, purple, and blue. People on Earth had turned into living fireflies. 6-colored light pulsed from every cell, bathing their bodies like warm lamps. How could carbon-based cells possibly glow, and why was it multicolored? Some of the glowing people screamed in terror, others in delight. They ran and shouted, then suddenly went weak, collapsed, and lay on the ground still radiating that strange light. Ah! Those Earthlings are glowing. Their cells are melting! Galen cried from outside the planet. She looked to Legiduo with mounting panic. This looks like assimilation caused by the dimensional environment. Do you have a solution? Legiduo was calmer than she was. From his vantage, he could see more clearly. As the first group on Earth had collapsed, the next waves of life forms entering the God Realm dimension had begun to glow too. Their cells seemed to melt and burn in that light. It certainly looked like assimilation. But it wasn't simple absorption by the dimension. A few individual cells melted much more slowly, and during that process, those cells began to take on characteristics of the 6-gem rules. Abilities related to space and time were stirring. It wasn't assimilation so much as a forced awakening. The 6-gem rules that upheld the God Realm dimension permeated everywhere. They had been too blatant, too exposed. The moment Earth life entered, their bodies started to harmonize spontaneously with those rules. Rather than being assimilated, they were undergoing a kind of Tao transformation. It's not impossible to fix, Legiduo said. It just needs careful tuning. He brought the whole mutant Earth fully into the God Realm dimension and entered with it. Controlling the 6-gem rules from inside, he began to tuck them away, seeding them into the void and embedding them into the dimensional barrier. It was like kneading dough. Add flour if there's too much water. Add water if there's too much flour. He adjusted the rules again and again, watching in real time how every organism, down to bacteria and viruses, responded. Only when none of them showed further abnormalities did he stop his micromanagement. This should be about right, he muttered. Using his supervision, Legiduo inspected mutant Earth from core to crust. He confirmed that the survival status of all biologies now matched what it had been before. Satisfied, he moved the Earth to the outer edge of the God Realm dimension and placed a star nearby, creating an environment indistinguishable from its original solar system. It's done just like that? Wow! How did you do it? Galen craned up on tiptoe and shaded her eyes as she peered toward the planet at the edge of the dimension. Her purple eyes glittered with admiration. Amazing, Legiduo. You made the dimensional rules behave like a normal universe. Legiduo smiled wryly. Your praise is too much, Galen. It makes it sound like you couldn't do it. He used the pad of one immense finger to nudge her. For Galen, that tiny push sent her tumbling millions of kilometers. Ah, Legiduo, you're doing it again! She screeched as she hurtled through space. She felt like she flipped endlessly, and when she finally steadied herself, she found she'd been moved from in front of his eyes to his shoulder, a journey of millions of kilometers. Dizzy and disheveled, her hair a tangle, she swore, I told you not to bully people just because you're tall and big. Galen stomped and pouted. Every time she visited Legiduo's Reduo clone for a meal, he would inflate himself to a height of 90 million kilometers and tease her like this. She was a cosmic deity. Even a direct collision with a Big Bang wouldn't seriously harm her. But being flicked across space and having her hair mussed up was aggravating. When teased at first, she might blow up, stomp on him, and storm away, but hunger always won her back. She'd smile, bury her hands behind her back, and walk back to ask, with mock civility, if the kind my lord Legiduo might spare some food. This time she merely stamped her foot and brooded, then resized herself small enough to fit in his palm so he couldn't easily push her again. Modifying the rules of an entire dimension isn't that simple, she grumbled. Do you think everyone can just reach in and rework rules with their bare hands? She turned her head, enviously. I wish I had that power. All I can do is keep eating, and my matter-energy conversion is limited. Envious, are you? Fine, I won't tease you anymore. Eat enough delicacies, and maybe you'll become as powerful as the devourer of worlds. Lady Duo reached out and ruffled her hair like a toy. Galen's smile softened, but it vanished when her hair got mussed again. Hey, my hair was just tidied, she cried, grabbing her head and opening a spatial portal. I'm not talking to you anymore, she called before slipping back into the living creature's dimension. Got it, Lady Duo shrugged, unconcerned. When she grew hungry, she would return, mischief intact. For mutant Earth, the Reg Duo clone must continue to monitor subsequent changes, he said. If everything remains stable, we can begin preparations to merge the universe that contains mutant Earth. The first experiment is crucial. The whole process must be foolproof. Legi Duo stepped out of the God Realm dimension and reappeared in the surrounding void, an expanse that had been empty for trillions of light years, devoid of beings and rules. Now 7 vast dimensions had manifested there. One of them was noticeably smaller than the other 6. Chapter 577, 3 Abstract Entities. These 7 dimensions were precisely the domains of the 7 demon lords who had tried to invade the God Realm dimension a few years ago. That included the realms of Mephisto and Dormammu. Leon told Darkstrange to prioritize increasing the extraction intensity against those specific dimensions while conquering the others. After all, those lords had all signed contracts with Leon that allowed him unconditional borrowing of their dimensional energy. When Blackstrange struck Mephisto, Leon could simultaneously invoke the contracts to siphon energy from those demon lords and then use that energy to suppress them in turn. Currently, 2/3 of the Hell Lords in the realm of Split were here. Leon believed it would not be long before Blackstrange conquered the rest. The 7 dimensions formed a ring around the God Realm dimension. From the outside, some of them even looked larger than the God Realm itself. On the barriers of several of these dimensions, energy channels had been opened, drawing power into the God Realm dimension. That process would continue until the 7 dimensions were gone. Those dimensions included Hell dimensions, the Dark dimension, and the Dream dimension, each carrying important functions in the multiverse. Because of that, Leon slowed the rate of extraction. Only after the Marvel multiverse had been completely destroyed would he drain them entirely, so as not to jeopardize the mutant universe's integration into the God Realm dimension. He pushed the 7 dimensions together, leaving an empty space, then stepped out of the realm of Split and appeared outside the mutant universe. It seems there's already a preliminary effect. Leon stood in the vast dark void, facing the huge cosmic bubble of the mutant universe. That bubble had originally been drifting toward another universe due to timeline contraction. But having lost its Earth and the anchor points on that Earth, the mutant universe began to collapse. It stopped moving toward the other universe, but hadn't detached from the cluster to chase after its Earth, which had already been taken into the realm of Split. Vividly put, it was shaking in place, oscillating between moving toward the other universe and trying to return to its Earth. As expected, for a universe, its Earth is both an axis and a coordinate, Leon mused. After losing Earth, the universe instinctively moves toward its original anchor, or it might try to recreate an Earth. Leon realized all he needed to do was open a channel into the mutant universe and give it a nudge. It would then naturally collide with the God Realm dimension. He would later pull it more deliberately to avoid a catastrophic collision. Saving as many universes as possible was a heavy workload. The strength of the Rage Duo clone needed to be increased quickly. He casually opened a huge channel between the realm of Split and the mutant universe. Normally, an array left by the Vishanti would appear to block such an opening, but the mutant universe's Earth had long since been grabbed by Leon, and there were no Kamartaj sorcerers left in that universe. The channel opened without resistance. It can begin. Leon flew to the other side of the mutant universe. His biofield spread out and enveloped the entire universe. He placed his hands on the cosmic barrier, and, using that biofield, pushed the universe toward the spatial channel like rolling a snowball. He felt a slight resistance, not much compared to his strength, but for the mutant universe, it was the pull of its timelines. A rough tug would cause the universe to collapse instantly, but Golden Superman could handle far more than that. Leon's extended biofield subtly twisted. The timelines pulling the universe detached from their main axis and merged into the mutant universe. His steel body had reached a level where sheer force could alter much of reality. If his strength alone made him formidable, then the biofield was even more astonishing. Half of Golden Superman's omnipotent traits were owed to the biofield. Gurgle, gurgle. Leon easily pushed the universe. There was nothing in the void to make a sound, but to his senses the universe rolled, and the faint sound hovered like an imitation, real enough for his superhearing. He turned and noticed something unexpected. A head had emerged from the side of the mutant universe. Its skin was the starry sky of that universe. Its eyes and mouth were composed of stars. That head had produced the rolling sound. Imitating, Leon murmured, uneasy. What are you doing, Eternity? He asked, squinting. Shouldn't I be asking you what you're doing, Leon? Eternity replied sharply. Leon glanced at him. Can't you tell? I'm doing what you four abstract entities aren't doing, saving the multiverse. I know that, Eternity said, but I'm very surprised you chose to use your dimension to devour my universe. At that moment, another head appeared. I'm surprised too. And me, said Death, the third head. Oblivion did not show. Eternity had mentioned Oblivion was reclusive, so his absence was expected. The three cosmic entities, Eternity, Death, and Infinity, looked like sculpted heads observing Leon together. The sight was strange, but Leon was unmoved. He continued pushing the universe through the channel and replied casually, It was Strange's suggestion. This method is relatively simple, so I used it. Eternity nodded. Oh, it was proposed by someone else? Then that makes sense. Why does that make sense to you? Leon asked. Lord Infinity interjected, because of your cultivation system. From our understanding, Infinity continued, the God Realm dimension is a transitionary step. You shouldn't regard it as sacred, nor should you use it as the sole key to saving worlds. You really do understand me well, Leon thought. These prying gods had watched him for over 10 years. They probably knew him better than Tony did. The first method I considered was assigning power to each single-level M-body, Leon explained. Then I would use the M-bodies to carry countless universes and travel to the cluster of universes I built outside Marvel. Death chuckled and interrupted. So you built a little base outside our realm too? Such ambition. Why don't you show it to us? Leon lifted the entire mutant universe into the channel and answered, No. If I take you to other universes, who knows if the living tribunal will stop me, or if the one above all will follow me to retrieve you. That one is not as free to act as you think, Eternity said. However, your decision is sound. You may take one of our universes, but taking too many would be extremely dangerous. Chapter 578, Devouring the Mutant Universe. The trip through the spatial channel from the mutant universe took almost no time. In a flash, Lion reappeared outside the God Realm dimension. The abstract entities gathered there reacted theatrically, lamenting how long it had been since they had left their universe. After their complaints, Eternity spoke up. One of his M-bodies, one of his multiple manifestations, was still imprisoned by Dormammu in the realm of Split in the adjacent comic universe. To his surprise, even more of his M-bodies here were about to be devoured, and by one of his own siblings. Death and Infinity voiced their helplessness as well, realizing they could only watch while Lion consumed the universe. Perhaps because they were alone, the four great abstracts had completely unmasked their private, dramatic tendencies. Before Lion could let the majestic image of them settle into his mind, he interrupted. Before I start merging this universe, does anyone else want to leave? You're really not coming out? You don't want this M-body? If you don't come out now, I'll really devour you with it. Faced with Leon's blunt threats, the abstracts put on heroic airs, vowing to stay and die with the universe. They pressed their faces to the barrier like stage actors, gesturing wildly and even telling Lion exactly how to go about devouring the world. Lion found himself more helpless than threatened. These four, Eternity, Infinity, Death, and Annihilation, were usually revered, but in private they behaved like gossiping elders. Listening to them argue about the first step in devouring a universe, Lion remembered a comic arc from a life he'd read before. In that storyline, Annihilation had felt squeezed by eternity. He claimed his existential space was being robbed and sued before the Life Tribunal. Eternity denied any wrongdoing, Annihilation insisted, and at one point even proposed throwing death to Eternity to make more room. The four great gods had often been paired, Eternity with Infinity, Death with Annihilation. The trial, however, ended with Death being assigned to Eternity's side, turning the balance into 3 against 1. Annihilation briefly enjoyed the extra space. Billions of years later, though, he found himself lonely and asked Eternity to return Death. Eternity agreed, but Annihilation worried that Death's return would shrink his space, so he chose to kill Eternity instead. He transformed into a cosmic serpent and strangled Eternity, who tried to reason even while being choked. The Life Tribunal eventually intervened, hammering judgment down on Annihilation and leaving him humiliated and crying. That arc was meant to dramatize internal conflict among the abstracts, but Lion saw only the boredom and comedy of cosmic existence. The four proclaimed they would be buried with the universe, but in reality, they were hotly debating how Lion should devour it. "We've done this before. We know how a universe breathes energy. Let me advise," Eternity said, like an old man leaning on a cane outside a village chess game. "Do this first, then that. Control the transfer. Don't let your dimension transform the matter space of this universe. Transfer it." Infinity and Death chimed in like meddling grandmothers. Lion listened politely, then turned his attention back to the task. He had already absorbed a great many universal rules and knew what needed to be done. Lion positioned the mutant universe on the periphery of the God Realm dimension and aligned the borders. The thick, invisible barriers didn't clash so much as melt into one another. As their interiors began to intertwine, the God Realm dimension erupted in a terrible suction. Space, matter, and energy surged from the mutant universe into the God Realm. "Exactly. Control the speed," Eternity urged. "Don't let it transform. Just transfer." Lion ignored the chorus of advice and focused on his own approach. He did not want to annihilate the mutant universe. He wanted to save it. Normally, when a dimension consumed a real world, it converted everything within that world into its own substance. Energy devoured, matter eroded, life reduced to dust. But Lion's intent was different. He treated the transfer like moving gas from one balloon to another. Under his control, superclusters were absorbed into the God Realm dimension and then placed into empty voids he created. He adjusted the God Realm's rules to perform the gentlest possible assimilation on each cluster. It would be slow, months before a galaxy fully integrated, but safe and stable. When the work finished, the God Realm would be stronger for the added space, matter, and energy. While Lion continued the transfer and watched the newly settled galaxies, another problem surfaced. The native rules of the God Realm dimension were chaotic and corrosive, but comprehensive. After Lion confined those native rules to a small region and grafted in the mutant universe, he discovered a glaring omission. The God Realm's rules lacked the mechanisms of life cycles. Death and birth, the repeating internal cycles that give a universe its dynamics, were absent. The 6 gem rules that govern this dimension contain no factors for death, birth, or renewal. The glowing people from mutant Earth hadn't died, and now, in the galaxies he just added, there was no death and no new life either. Lion realized that without those crucial cyclical elements, the realm would only house a rudimentary, incomplete universe. Chapter 579, Cosmic Deities, dive one after another. Solving this isn't difficult. Leon had already begun the universe fusion and came well prepared. He had spent over 10 years in the Type Moon world. During that time, his M-body had been immersed in the root every day. The root was the beginning and end of all things in the Type Moon world, containing all the knowledge of its multiverse. After a decade there, Leon had come to understand every structure and every rule of the Type Moon multiverse. Using that understanding as a reference, he could now introduce concepts like death and rebirth into his own dimension. The only thing to consider is that these rules must integrate with the 6 gem rules. But that's not hard either. Superbrain, show me what you can do. A faint golden light flared around Leon as his multiverse-level superbrain activated in his golden Superman state. The truths of the Type Moon and Marvel universes tangled in his mind. The superbrain ran terrifying calculations every instant, simulating countless ways the rules might interweave and quickly discarding the wrong ones. As Leon focused, the gold glow on his body grew ever brighter. Then 3 voices interrupted. "You've run into a problem, Leon. You're young, abstract entity. Sometimes you need help from your elders," Eternity said from behind him. Death smiled. He might need help from his elder sister. "Look, the environment is almost like a normal universe, but it lacks me." "It lacks me too," Infinity added. "The time you constructed is too thin, only a single timeline. But with me and Eternity, your dimension could spawn infinite parallel timelines." Death scoffed. "What's the use of so many timelines in an already excessive dimension?" "And without me in Oblivion," Infinity countered, "saving the multiverse is nothing but a fantasy." "You can't be missing," Death sneered. "Oh ho ho, Death, you're always so confident." Eternity and Oblivion clashed with each other in one way, and Death and Infinity in another. Leon had been concentrating on simulating rule fusion and hadn't intended to heed their barbs. But his superbrain suddenly flagged. The old guardians, the cosmic grandparents who functioned as Deus Ex Machina, were present. "Infinity, Death, and Eternity, you've arrived at exactly the right moment." Leon tried to sound serious. "There's a problem." "Heh, I know. Your dimension's rules are incomplete, right?" Eternity said before Leon could finish. He drifted to Leon's shoulder, prepared to impart elder wisdom. At that moment, a spatial passage opened nearby. Leon, have you started devouring universes? I can sense a flood of life energy." "Eh?" Galen stepped through. She took in Leon and the 3 abstract entities at once. "Is that Uncle Eternity, Aunt Infinity, and Aunt Death?" Galen blinked, surprised. Is this Galen, daughter of the great Galactus?" Eternity was taken aback as well. Leon was even more startled. When Galen appeared, the 3 deities who had been bantering and relaxed just moments before became solemn, overwhelming in their majesty. Eternity, who had been perched on Leon's shoulder, returned to stand beside Infinity and Death. Together they filled the dimension with supreme presence. "It's Galen. You've come to help save the multiverse, I assume?" "Very good. Truly worthy to be Galactus's daughter," Infinity said with a gracious smile. Death added, "You've arrived at a pivotal moment. We are making our final effort for the multiverse, Galen. Tell your father to watch over our world." Galen frowned, confused. The words Death spoke had a tone of farewell. Then, as if confirming that tone, her hood and the skeletal form beneath it began to dissipate. The eye sockets, burning with green flame, stared into the void as though beholding the world for the last time. From finger bones to ribcage, Death's being dissolved into fine, sand-like particles of light and drifted away until she was gone. Her voice echoed in Galen's mind. "The world needs death, so I bring death." At that instant, the concept of death was added to the God Realm dimension. Galen, newly arrived, could scarcely believe her eyes. She had witnessed death's dissolution firsthand. She glanced uncertainly at Eternity and Infinity, unsure whether this was an embodied sacrifice or something more absolute. Neither answered with words. Both simply smiled and turned to light. "The world is born because of me. I perish for the world," Eternity declared. "I give the universe infinite possibilities. From the destruction that follows, rebirth will be infinite because of me," Infinity said. Eternity and Infinity, 2 sides of the same coin, sacrificed themselves before the stunned Galen. Simultaneously, the God Realm dimension gained the concepts of eternity and infinity. "Ah, what happened to them, uncle, aunties? What are they doing?" Galen's face was a mixture of bewilderment and helplessness. She had heard stories of her father and of Uncle Eternity dying many times, but this was the first time she had seen such an end in person. "Leon! Leon!" Galen hurried along Leon's shoulder toward his head, desperate for answers. Before she could reach him, a chill sigh, full of annihilating intent, echoed through the hearts of countless beings across the God Realm dimension. "Birth is destined for annihilation. Only after annihilation is there rebirth. I am one with death, the annihilation within eternity." A skeleton in a tattered purple cloak stepped out from the mutant universe. "Uncle Oblivion?" Galen gasped. Oblivion glanced coldly at Leon and Galen, as if offering a curt greeting, then followed the others. He dissolved into purplish-black particles of light and vanished. Again, dissipated. Uncle Oblivion has gone too? Galen's expression blanked as she tried to grasp the scale of what was happening. Is this all to save the multiverse? Where is my father now? Leon's face showed hesitation. Then more deities came from the mutant universe. The world needs chaos. I am chaos, the King of Chaos proclaimed as he ran in and merged with the dimension. Love cannot be missing. Even at the apocalypse, love nurtures all things, said Love, one of Eternity's 7 children, and she followed. Abomination maintains balance, intoned another. Entropy is the ultimate truth of the universe's cycle. The contact zone between the God Realm dimension and the mutant universe had turned into a kind of diving platform. Abstract entities streamed out, leapt down, and dissolved into the God Realm dimension as particles of light, each bringing a specific conceptual rule with them. 20, 30, dozens of them ran out, dove in, and dissipated, adding their essences to the world. Galen watched, stunned. One after another, cosmic beings sacrificed themselves, their existences transmuted into rules and concepts that now grounded the God Realm dimension. Chapter 580, Galen's Public Humiliation. Ah! So many uncles and aunties, and entropy, eternity, hatred. Galen's pupils trembled and her thoughts staggered, as if she had watched the universe itself collapse. She was a universe entity, not an abstract entity, so she only half understood what those uncles and aunties had done. She assumed they had all willingly sacrificed themselves. Her face was frozen in shock. Then, confronted by the blazing resolve of her elders and peers to save the universe, something in her shifted. Leon, should I do something too? Galen turned to Leon, hesitant. He had already seen the resolve in her eyes. Brave or reckless, she was stirred by Eternity's dramatic gesture. A young heart had been lit and was ready to become a torch. Leon fell silent for a moment. Do you think you need to make a sacrifice? Galen puffed up her small face and clenched a fist with comic seriousness. All my elders and brothers and sisters are so brave. Of course I have to try. So you want to start sacrificing yourself by chanting those long and short verses? Those only work for M-bodies. Are you an M-body? Leon's face turned grave, as if he were forcing down a laugh. Galen hesitated, then shook her head emphatically. I'm not an M-body, but that doesn't matter. I still want to save the universe. Leon, trying to hide his amusement, asked again, How are you going to save it, Galen? Are you planning to help me devour the excess life energy? The zeal drained from Galen's face. Leon's words hit like a wake-up shake. Galen, daughter of Galactus and one of the universe's destruction mechanisms, she had somehow forgotten her role. Her function in this cosmos was destruction, not preservation. She froze, eyes flickering with confusion. Then, after a beat, she snapped back to herself. Oh right, I can go find my father. He must want to save the universe too. Leon couldn't help laughing outright. Of all the plans, asking Galactus to jump into the water. What are you laughing at? Galen's cheeks flamed with embarrassment and indignation. You think I'm useless, don't you? She felt useless. Her father was useless, just eating, never helpful. While others burned themselves as a beacon of hope, she and her father were just eating. No, I'm laughing because... Leon faltered, amused. Because you're just too cute, Galen. Galen's blush deepened. Cute? Cute is useless in an apocalypse. No, I mean you're adorably naive. Leon poked her playfully. Galen shrieked and flew backwards several million kilometers on reflex. She landed furious, fists clenched, the skin at her arms and chest flushing with heat. Leon smiled and continued. You thought Eternity and the others had sacrificed themselves, but that's a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Galen's expression froze. They're abstract entities, Leon explained. They didn't die. They reverted from embodied form into pure conceptual states. The abstract entities had not thrown themselves away. Their plunge into the water wasn't a sacrifice in the way Galen imagined. Abstract entities are embodiments of concepts. They are supreme because the concept exists first, and then the rule appears in the universe. If they choose, they can project those concepts anywhere. Those dozens of abstract entities that had chanted the long and short verses and plunged in with such tragic solemnity, they'd only been putting on a show. They shifted into a conceptual state. Leon, as Dimension Lord, knew this intimately. After he said it, Galen went blank. The absurdity and the sting of public humiliation spread across her like a cold wave. "Look," Leon said. Galen turned, still dazed. Behind her in the starry sky, 2 or 3 dozen illusory silhouettes faced her, all smiling and waving. They were the elders and siblings she'd seen sacrifice only moments ago. Her face crumpled. She felt the heat of embarrassment so intense it was almost physical. I hate you, Leon." She slammed a hand over her face, opened a spatial passage, and plunged inside. Laughter echoed through the cosmos, her family's laughter, mocking. Leon shook his head with a wry smile. The abstract entities, eternity, infinity, death, annihilation, were returning to their conceptual forms and folding into the God realm dimension. He watched their figures fade away, knowing they would reside there for a long time as new universes continued to merge into the dimension. Their M-bodies, their manifest material aspects, would also merge, growing in strength, until eventually the dimension might contain a cluster of multiversal-level abstract entity clones. But Leon felt no anxiety. He felt advantage. "Eternity, you really are magnanimous," he murmured. As master of the God realm dimension, Leon understood the import of what had happened. By turning themselves into concepts and merging into this dimension, eternity and the others had effectively become part of his domain. He could now comprehend the conceptual rules they represented. More than that, he held their life and death in his hands. That wasn't purely trust, it was their indifference toward their embodies on the side of the physical universe. They'd willingly run into Leon's control. Leon offered a silent thanks to the void beside him, and then accelerated the God realm dimension's assimilation of the mutant universe. With the concepts of eternity, infinity, death, and annihilation woven into it, the God realm dimension was complete. With Galen present, the dimension now included a built-in cyclical mechanism for disposing of excess matter. The additional devotion of other abstract concepts was merely icing on the cake. Leon could feel the change. Every region of the dimension was emitting signals of energy deficit. Once that energy shortage was filled, the God realm dimension could start transforming into a bona fide universe.